So good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to be speaking about so smart but isn't a likable or a people person. We're going to be talking about why being a people person, being sociable is very important to effective communication. And so some of the gatherings or some of the findings we have here today are from an article that we read by Weiner, chapter 9. I'm Vivek.
I'm Nikita.
I'm Ethan.
I'm David.
I'm Yadi.
And to start us off, we're going to be talking about the big F, which is using full-on flattery. So full-on flattery, or just flattery in general, is a really good way to be able to bridge gaps between you and maybe somebody you're meeting for the first time. So in business communication, it's kind of like the small talk assignments we've been doing, right? They kind of lead as a segue into a conversation, and they're really important to establish kind of a ground level of credibility in terms of you're a likable person that they can get along with and maybe have transactions or dealings with. An example of how you could start off a conversation is, I love your necklace, or maybe within the conversation you say, that's a great idea, let's try it. And so it brings this collaborative spirit into a discussion, which oftentimes can yield to better results than not. And one important thing about flattery, and a good question that probably a lot of you have is, well, what if we simply don't like the other person we're speaking to, or what if we truly don't believe in what we're saying? And so kind of what Weiner talks about in this article is that actually fake it till you make it is a really good approach when discussing flattery. And the reason for that is, even if you start off as not being genuine, the more you say it, kind of the more you buy into it, and the more the bridge is or the gap is bridged. And so now I'm going to be passing it off to Nikita, and she's going to be telling us about why being likable is important.
Hi, thank you. So this is a brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about today. What I found interesting was in the article. So the first thing is connect with the audience, learn from your clients and explore their abilities, and kind of counterintuitive what he just said, but don't just talk for small talk purposes. So this article was super interesting because it brought up a ton of different points. So the first one that I wanted to highlight was it said connect with your audience, which is important, of course, and it says what do you like to do on weekends? Now this is a very open-ended question, and as you can see, it's not a yes or no. So this kind of forces you to interact with your audience, or if you're a consultant, to your client, because this forces you not only to be very attentive, but also for them to listen to you and you to get feedback and kind of develop from there. Another thing that was highlighted was it said learn from your clients and explore their abilities by saying, I need your advice. So if I were to stand up here and be like, present to you guys, I need your advice, you're immediately going to want to listen to me solely because I'm asking for your help, and it's a more serious conversation, so people are already going to sit up a little straighter and kind of want to learn more about your situation, but also to develop that kind of feedback. And then I know we do small talk in this class, and they're really helpful, but what was funny in this article, and it said don't just talk for small talk purposes. This doesn't mean don't develop your small talking like we do in this class, but rather don't just go up to someone and be like, oh, what's the weather like while you're presenting, and then let the conversation die. Because if you let the conversation die, it's not like it's useless, but it just doesn't develop anywhere, and there's no relationship that's really being built from that point onward. So this is kind of funny, but these are the many faces of a people pleaser. So someone who's happy in presenting is smiling, or sad in presenting is smiling. So that was important to note that when you present, you always want to check your personal life at the door, whether you come into work or not. Sometimes it's hard to not overlap those two sorts of things, but it's also important that you need to ask open-ended questions, because if you're a people pleaser or trying to be a people pleaser, and when you're talking you aren't really listening to your audience and you're faking your emotions, it's going to be extremely noticeable to your client, to the audience, whatever you're presenting, because if you fake an emotion, it's almost impossible. If I don't know anyone who can really cry on demand. Do you know what I mean? So it's a little difficult. And the last thing I want to highlight is you need to be engaging. So ideally we could all run around this classroom and do a bunch of different activities, but around this time of day I'm pretty sure everyone just sit down and relax, just because it's midterm season. So we're not going to do that today, but it's important to engage with people and talk to them and listen. And while active listening can move you pretty far into anything you want to do, it's also important just to overall seem more likable, whether you have to fake it till you make it or not. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ethan, who is going to talk about sociability.
Okay, so how sociability impacts others. So just to break this down a little bit, what do you guys think sociability means? And don't bother Googling it, because all it says is the quality of being sociable, which isn't that helpful. Anyone have any ideas? No? Okay. So when you see sociability, think likability. How likable is this person? When you're pretend that you're a boss. Who would you rather give a promotion to? Would you rather give a promotion to somebody who is more outgoing, speaks a lot during meetings, is friendly with all the staff, or someone who doesn't really contribute a whole lot, or is perceived as grouchy by the rest of the staff and is kind of irritable? You know, the promotion would most likely go to the person who's more likable or sociable. And this is because liked people are more credible than those who aren't liked. This lady right here is Maggie de Block, and she's the Minister of Health of Belgium. Now, anyone want to take a stab at the quality of healthcare in Belgium right now? Anyone want an idea? Well, actually, Belgium's number 4 out of all the countries in Europe. They're in the top 4. So she actually does a great job, but when she was originally hired, she got a lot of flack for the way that she looks, just because of the position that she got. And that's because of people who liked her more credible. And another part of the article was that your friends have the most influence over you. It's who you're going to listen to more often. Are you listening to your friends when they ask what your outfit looks good today, or are you going to trust someone that you hate to tell you that answer? And so there's no better example in this than the Kardashians, because they've made their entire fortune off of this very concept. And now we have a video to show you.
Professor Jennifer Lewick says that businesses trying to figure out how to make money online should take a lesson from the Kardashians. Most celebrity Twitter feeds are overtly promotional. They're full of corporate-looking ads and tweets that are clearly written by PR handlers. Compare that to Kim Kardashian's feed. She whines about jet lag and asks her followers whether she should embarrass her husband.
You guys have hired a new glam team.
It is definitely a dynamic that comes very close to a perceived friendship, but it's completely one-sided.
Communication scholars call this phenomenon parasocial interaction. The researchers who coined the term in the mid-1950s use it to describe the feeling of friendship and closeness that people felt with TV personalities who they'd never met.
Oh, yeah!
It's almost like, when you're at a concert and somebody is singing and that person is looking into the audience and you feel like they're looking at you and they're singing at you.
A reality show like Keeping Up with the Kardashians is fertile ground for the beginnings of a parasocial relationship. And Kim and her sisters nurture it by speaking to their fans on social media like they're friends.
Hey guys, it's been so...
Professor Jennifer Lewick's
Yeah, so the Kardashians built their whole empire off the concept of that friends, you're more likely to take an opinion from your friend. And so they would recommend brands and then people would buy them. So now I'm going to pass it off to David.
So does everybody here know what the word foible means? Yeah, it's a funny sounding word, but I'm going to wait for us to catch back up here, because I have a lot of graphics here and a lot of stuff to talk about. So why did you bring up your foibles? So a foible, in essence, is any small character flaw or defect that you may have personally. And this goes from I don't recycle to I get really mad when the Cowboys lose. It can be anything pretty much. So I think personally from the reading and also from personal belief that foibles help form a connection with other people. When you go into a working environment, when you're going into school, you're constantly saying to yourself, I have to be this paragon of humanity. I have to go out there and say to myself, I'm going to be the best me that I could possibly be. But then when you mess up, suddenly that image that you've crafted and sort of done to yourself, sort of put yourself apart from the pack, now it's really damaged because people don't see you as a human, they don't see you as you, they see you as what you projected out to everybody else. So by telling somebody, hey, I'm not really good at doing expense reports, could you help me out? You're admitting that you have a shortcoming somewhere, you're getting help from somebody else. So it's a great exchange of ideas as well. And so this can happen either in the workplace or in at home, because if you're in the workplace and somebody's more experienced, they just know what they're doing a little bit better, it really doesn't matter, because if you share something that you're weak at, maybe they're proficient in that area, maybe they've done it 100 times, like, oh, that's easy, that's okay. But you would never know if you don't tell them, hey, I'm weak in this area. And so I think also it humanizes the speaker. This sort of goes back to what I said earlier, where who here has a job right now? Like, hands up high, I got to see here. Okay, so most people here have a job. Do you go into your job in gym shorts, flip-flops, and a t-shirt? Anybody? You do. Okay, so two people do. So if you're not those two people, right? You're gonna look presentable, you're gonna act presentable, you're gonna be respectful to your boss and to your coworkers at all times, you're gonna make sure you're doing what has to be done, right? Where's the human element in all of that, right? I'm not saying you have to wear flip-flops to get along with your boss, but I'm saying that if you tell them like, hey, you know, I'm bad with time management, and then 3 weeks from now you are working on it, you've worked with your boss about it, you've told them you're foible, you said, hey, here's the area I'm deficient in. They can make note of that, so when they come back and they say, oh, Tim's running behind on his project, instead of saying, yeah, I think he's in whatever department, let's just punish him and get out of here. They can say, oh, you know, he's coming to me about this, we've talked about this extensively, you know, we're gonna give him a shot, we're gonna give him a break here. And so for a little story time, my freshman year of college, I was at an interview clinic thing, and so I was going to whoever was proctoring the whole thing, and I said to him, well, you know, I really speak too fast, I don't really know what I should be doing in interviews, and I don't really like looking people in the eye, and there's a bunch of things that I like really don't do very well. And so he stops me, he goes, son, I want you to listen to me, right? So this is me, that was my foible to him, right? Is I can't do interviews to save my life, and I couldn't talk or present to save my life at all. So he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, listen, son, when you're saying something, I want you to think to yourself, is there a good reason for me to be saying this right now? And if not, just shut the hell up, right? And that's some of the best advice I've ever gotten in my collegiate career. Because most people just speak to just, you know, speak and hear themselves talk, but you should really be thinking a little bit more. So that's where Floyd will help me out. And with that, I want to go ahead and pass it over to Yadi, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about stories and conversation.
So stories, what is storytelling? Storytelling is the idea that you take your experiences or your experiences, your stories, and you give it to other people as a way to connect to them. So storytelling is everywhere. It's in branding. It's in the way politicians communicate to their voters. It's in the way when entrepreneurs, when they're going towards investors, they're communicating their ideas. Storytelling is a way to bind people together behind a common idea so that we can collaborate and work forward. So people react to storytelling with a greater interest and emotional investment. When you tell someone a story, you're essentially communicating to them that, hey, I think you're of value, and that's why I'm sharing a personal segment of my life with you so that you can sort of share this moment together. That then tells the other person that, hey, you know, this person values me, he values me and my time, so I should provide that emotional investment to him, and I should work with him in the future. And storytelling is what builds your brand. One person that has built their brand off of storytelling is Richard Branson. Richard Branson started his career in the music industry. He built a record store, and then eventually after that he started Virgin Airlines. The Virgin Airline brand that he started eventually went all over the world, but the key element about it is that the Virgin story about how he started Virgin Airlines, the stories that he's portrayed in the media about him hanging out with models and him on his private island, stories of him taking the balloon flight and flying across Iceland. These stories together and then pushed out into the media have provided Virgin a massive global brand. Off of that brand, Virgin and Richard Branson have started multiple businesses across 20 plus industries in more than 100 countries. That whole branding and that whole business was built off of the story that is Virgin Airlines and the brand. So how do you tell a good story? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to find a connection and a common interest. So if you're a politician and you're trying to get votes from other people, you want to connect with them and their experiences. If you're connecting with, say, rural workers, you want to talk about your experiences, you know, working in a farm and things of that sort, and then talk about those stories about, you know, who you encountered, the problems you faced. And so you want to also communicate on a personal level. Nobody wants to feel like they're being talked to as a number on a spreadsheet or as an generic employee. And so you want to communicate with them on a personal level so they know that you value them and you recognize their identity and their personality. You want to be authentic and passionate. So authenticness is something that's very valued in today's economy because all over social media, companies and personalities are constantly in a rush to, you know, push out content and their stories. They're sacrificing authenticness because a lot of their stories are just manufactured. They're taking too many pictures and things of that sort that are not real. You also want to be passionate. People can sort of detect your energy and or feed off of that energy. So if you're not passionate about your business, product, whatever office or whatever you're running for, then they can sort of see that and then respond accordingly. You want to talk about a problem and offer solutions because people are sort of very attracted towards problems and problems being solved. If you can solve people's problems, that means that you can then make their lives better, and they're very interested in that. So humor is also a very important element of storytelling, because humor is what makes people's lives often, if someone is having a dull day and you give them humor, they have a greater emotional response to you, and that helps them form a connection with you. And also unique perspectives. A lot of people are in their own little bubbles where they talk to the same people, they talk to their same high school friends and colleges, or they sort of talk to the same group of family and then friends and work or whatever the whole day. If you have a unique perspective, you have a unique experience, and you show that to them and their lives, they can sort of open their minds a little bit more, and they appreciate that experience, which is why storytelling with a unique perspective about, say, where you traveled, something you tried, or a unique problem you faced really helps someone sort of understand you better and connect with that.
And so to just kind of wrap everything up for you, the key findings that Weiner and our research held are that it's very important to be a people person when you're communicating with others, for persuasive value, for relationship value. And there are many different ways and kind of mediums we can do that. We can tell stories, we can talk about our own flaws, we can flatter other people. But all in all, it's about humanizing yourself, making others feel, again, as Yadi said, not numbers on a spreadsheet, but real person-to-person interaction. I think all of that is kind of what we've taken from the readings, things that we hope to demonstrate, with our interactions with others. We hope you can take the same. And I'm going to pass it off to David, who's going to walk you through our quiz now. Thank you.
Any questions?